The Queen Consort was 3 hours away from the most scrutinized public appearance of her reign. Every detail had been planned for months: the venue, the guest list, the media positioning. But most importantly, her jewelry selection had been finalized and secured, behind biometric locks that hadn't been accessed by anyone except her most trusted staff. What palace security didn't expect was the electromagnetic anomaly their routine sweep would detect coming from those very same private quarters. Readings that matched only one type of artifact in the entire British Crown collection, readings that should have been impossible, unless someone had managed to relocate the most sacred piece of royal regalia in existence. Queen Elizabeth's actual coronation crown. Not a ceremonial replica created for special occasions. Not a museum-quality reproduction commissioned for displays. The real St. Edward's crown, forged in 1661, worn by every British monarch for over 350 years, and supposedly secured in the impenetrable jewel house of the Tower of London. When Camilla's staff refused to grant immediate access to verify the source of these readings, palace security faced an unprecedented decision. They could respect royal privacy and hope their instruments were malfunctioning, or they could follow protocol designed to protect Britain's most precious historical artifacts, even if it meant forcing their way into the Queen Consort's most private spaces. They chose protocol, and what they discovered behind those locked doors would trigger the most sensitive royal investigation in modern British history. The morning had started routinely enough for Sarah Mitchell, Senior Conservation Officer for the Royal Collection. At 6:30 a.m., she'd begun her monthly electromagnetic survey of all royal jewelry storage areas throughout Buckingham Palace, a security protocol implemented after several high-profile art thefts from European museums had raised concerns about the vulnerability of priceless artifacts. Sarah had been conducting these surveys for 3 years without incident. Royal jewelry collections were meticulously cataloged, properly stored, and electromagnetically predictable. Tiaras registered consistent gold and diamond signatures. Ceremonial brooches showed expected platinum and sapphire readings. Everything always matched the official inventory records maintained by the Royal Collection Trust. But as she approached the East Wing's upper floors, where senior royals maintained their private quarters, her handheld scanner began detecting anomalies that made her stomach tighten with concern. The electromagnetic field readings were spiking in ways she'd never encountered during routine palace sweeps outside the Queen Consort's private dressing areas. The scanner's display lit up with warnings: gold content levels that exceeded anything in the standard royal jewelry collection, sapphire density readings that matched crown-level artifacts. Most alarming of all, an electromagnetic signature so distinctive that Sarah's training immediately flagged it as potentially belonging to one specific category of royal regalia. The crown jewels themselves. Sarah ran the scan 3 more times, checking and rechecking her equipment. Each reading was identical. Somewhere behind the secured doors of Camilla's private quarters was an object containing enough precious metal, rare gems, and historically significant craftsmanship to match the electromagnetic fingerprint of St. Edward's crown, the most sacred piece of royal regalia in British history. Her hands trembled slightly as she reviewed the scanner's data log. According to Royal Collection records, St. Edward's crown was supposed to be in its climate-controlled vault at the Tower of London, where it had remained since Queen Elizabeth II's coronation in 1953. It was never loaned, never moved for private use, never accessed except for official coronations. So why was her scanner detecting its exact electromagnetic signature inside the Queen Consort's private jewelry storage? Sarah pulled out her secure mobile phone and dialed a number she never expected to use outside of genuine emergencies. Palace Security Operations, this is Sarah Mitchell from Heritage Conservation. I need to report possible unauthorized possession of a crown jewel-level artifact. The silence that followed lasted exactly 12 seconds. Then, repeat that request, Ms. Mitchell. My electromagnetic scanning equipment is detecting readings consistent with St. Edward's crown in an unauthorized location. I need immediate protocol guidance. Another pause. Maintain your current position. Do not discuss this information with any staff members. A senior response team is being assembled immediately as Sarah waited in the corridor. She couldn't stop staring at her scanner's display. The numbers didn't lie. Whatever was hidden behind those doors carried the same precious metal composition, the same gemstone density, and the same unique electromagnetic fingerprint as the crown worn by British monarchs for centuries. 15 minutes later, she heard the measured footsteps of people moving with military precision down the palace corridor. Commander James Harrison appeared first, followed by Detective Inspector Claire Robbins and Technical Specialist Mark Stevens. Their expressions were professionally neutral, but Sarah could see the gravity of the situation reflected in their careful movements. Ms. Mitchell, Commander Harrison said quietly, show us exactly what your equipment detected. Sarah held out her scanner, its display still showing the anomalous readings. These electromagnetic signatures are consistent with crown-level artifacts, sir. According to my training, only St. Edward's crown would produce exactly this combination of precious metal and gemstone readings. Harrison studied the data carefully. After 15 years protecting royal assets, he'd never encountered a situation quite like this. Unauthorized movement of crown jewels wasn't just a security breach. It was a potential constitutional crisis that could reach the highest levels of government. Inspector Robbins, he said, verify the current location of crown jewel R C001 with the Tower of London immediately. Robbins stepped away to make the call, speaking in hushed tones. When she returned, her expression was grim. Sir, the tower confirms that St. Edward's crown is supposed to be in Vault 7, sub-level 2. But they're conducting their own verification check now. Harrison's jaw tightened. And if it's not there? Then, we're dealing with the theft of Britain's most important historical artifact. Now, before we continue with exactly how this investigation unfolded, take a moment to subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell. Drop a comment telling us if you discovered evidence suggesting a member of the royal family had unauthorized possession of the crown jewels. Would you have made that call? Because what happened next would test every protocol designed to protect Britain's most sacred treasures. Commander Harrison assembled his team in a secure conference room while they waited for confirmation from the Tower of London. The implications of Sarah's discovery were staggering. St. Edward's crown wasn't just another piece of royal jewelry, it was a symbol of sovereignty that belonged to the British people, held in trust by the crown but never owned by any individual. The electromagnetic evidence was undeniable. Sarah's scanner had detected the exact metallic composition that matched St. Edward's crown. 22-karat gold crown, specific sapphire arrangements that included the Black Prince's ruby and St. Edward's sapphire, and the unique electromagnetic signature created by centuries-old craftsmanship techniques. That couldn't be replicated by modern jewelers, sir, Detective Inspector Robbins announced. Ending her call with the Tower of London, we have confirmation. Vault 7 is empty. St. Edward's crown is missing from its secured location, and according to their logs, it was never officially checked out or transferred. The room fell silent. In over 600 years of British royal history, the crown jewels have been stolen only once by Colonel Thomas Blood in 1671, who was caught immediately and eventually pardoned. No one had ever successfully removed them from official custody in the modern era. When was it last verified in place? Harrison asked. 3 weeks ago, during routine monthly inspection. The vault logs show no access since then. But clearly something happened between the last verification and now. Harrison reviewed the protocol manual one final time. The rules were explicit. Any crown jewel found outside authorized custody triggered immediate recovery procedures regardless of who possessed it. No exceptions, no diplomatic considerations. No special permissions for royal family members. Technical specialist Stevens, he said. What kind of security are we likely to encounter in the Queen Consort's private quarters? High-end civilian systems, Stevens replied. Biometric safes, possibly climate-controlled storage. Definitely surveillance recording any access attempts, but nothing designed to keep out law enforcement with proper authorization. Harrison made his decision. We approach this as a recovery operation for stolen national heritage. Professional, respectful, but absolutely firm. If St. Edward's crown is in those quarters, it comes back to the tower today. The walk to Camilla's private wing felt longer than usual. As the team moved through Buckingham Palace's corridors, staff members stepped aside respectfully, unaware that they were witnessing the beginning of the most sensitive royal investigation in decades. Harrison knocked on the outer chamber door with measured authority. 3 deliberate strikes that conveyed official business without aggressive intent. Lady Patricia Thornfield answered, Camilla's senior private secretary, a woman whose job involved managing delicate situations with diplomatic precision. Her expression shifted from mild curiosity to carefully controlled concern. When she recognized Commander Harrison and his team, Commander, she said smoothly, this is rather unexpected. Her Majesty is preparing for this evening's state dinner. We understand the timing is inconvenient. Harrison replied, but we need immediate access to verify the contents of the Queen Consort's private jewelry storage. We have electromagnetic evidence suggesting the presence of crown-level artifacts that require authentication. Lady Thornfield's diplomatic training kicked in immediately. I'm afraid that's quite impossible without proper advance authorization. The Queen Consort's private chambers contain personal items being prepared for tonight's official function, which is precisely why we need to verify them now. Inspector Robbins interjected. If crown-level artifacts are being prepared for public display without proper authorization, we have constitutional obligations that supersede normal protocol. Before Lady Thornfield could respond, Camilla herself appeared in the doorway, like her typical public appearances, where every detail was carefully managed for maximum diplomatic effect. She looked genuinely surprised and increasingly irritated by the unscheduled intrusion. Gentlemen, she said, her voice carrying the kind of controlled authority that came from years of navigating political complexities. I assume you have compelling evidence to justify this rather dramatic interruption, or you've forgotten entirely how procedures work within this household. Harrison stepped forward. Your Majesty, our conservation team has detected electromagnetic readings consistent with St. Edward's crown, emanating from your private storage areas. The Tower of London has confirmed that the crown is missing from its authorized location. Camilla's expression shifted almost imperceptibly, a slight tightening around her eyes that suggested this conversation wasn't entirely unexpected. And you're suggesting what? Exactly. We're requesting permission to verify the contents of your private safe to confirm whether St. Edward's crown is present. Harrison continued. If our readings are incorrect, this investigation ends immediately with our apologies. And if you're correct, Camilla asked, her tone dangerously quiet, then we need to understand how a crown jewel came to be in unauthorized custody. And we need to return it to proper security immediately. Camilla glanced at Lady Thornfield, then back at Harrison. The silence stretched between them like a diplomatic standoff. Finally, she spoke. I suppose you realize that forcing entry into a senior royal's private chamber sets a precedent. That could have far-reaching implications for this family's privacy. With respect, Your Majesty, Inspector Robbins said, the crown jewels belong to the British people. Protecting them sets precedents that matter more than individual privacy. When constitutional artifacts are involved, another long pause. Then Camilla stepped aside. Very well. But I want it clearly documented that this search was conducted under protest and against my explicit recommendations regarding protocol. Harrison nodded respectfully. Understood, Your Majesty. But we appreciate your cooperation in resolving this matter quickly. As they followed Camilla through her private quarters, Harrison couldn't help noticing the meticulous organization of everything they passed. This wasn't the casual disorder of someone hiding stolen property. It was the careful arrangement of someone who planned every detail of their public presentation. The private dressing area was larger than most people's entire homes, with custom-built wardrobes, professional lighting, and storage systems that rivaled museum-quality preservation facilities. Everything spoke of extreme attention to detail and unlimited resources for maintaining appearance. But it was the far wall that drew Harrison's immediate attention. Behind what appeared to be an antique mirror was the distinctive outline of a concealed safe, the kind of high security storage used for items worth more than most people's annual income. Technical specialist Stevens, Harrison said, "What are we looking at?" Stevens examined the concealed safe with professional interest. Chubb Manifoil 6000 series biometric access, climate controls, humidity regulation, magnetic shielding. This is designed for storing artifacts that need museum-level protection. Harrison turned to Camilla. Your Majesty, we'll need your cooperation to open this safely. If we're forced to breach the safe security, any damage to the contents becomes our responsibility. Camilla's hand hovered over the biometric scanner. Before I provide access, I want my legal counsel present. Whatever's inside this safe, I want proper representation observing this entire process, ma'am. Electromagnetic evidence strongly suggests that what's inside belongs to the Crown Collection, not to any individual, Harrison replied firmly. Legal counsel may observe, but this verification needs to happen immediately. For a moment, Camilla seemed to be weighing her options, calculating the consequences of cooperation versus resistance. Then she pressed her thumb firmly against the scanner. The safe's locks disengaged with a soft hydraulic whisper, and the heavy steel door swung open on perfectly balanced hinges. Inside, surrounded by custom-fitted velvet cushioning that had clearly been designed specifically for this purpose, sat an object that made everyone in the room catch their breath simultaneously. St. Edward's crown. The medieval gold caught the safe's internal lighting and threw it back in warm, rich tones that seemed to make the entire crown glow from within. The central sapphires, including the legendary Black Prince's Ruby and St. Edward's Sapphire, captured and reflected every photon like they were holding concentrated starlight. But this wasn't just beautiful jewelry. The specific arrangement of precious stones, the hand-forged gold arches that had been shaped by master craftsmen over 350 years ago, the subtle engravings that marked it is the actual coronation crown used by British monarchs since 1661. Every detail confirmed what Harrison's team had suspected. This was the real St. Edward's crown, the most sacred piece of royal regalia in British history, sitting in an unauthorized private safe like a personal accessory. Stevens immediately pulled out his electromagnetic verification scanner and ran it across the crown's surface. The readings matched perfectly with the anomalous signatures that had triggered this entire investigation. Confirmed, he announced quietly. This is St. Edward's crown, catalog number RC001, supposed to be in maximum security custody at the Tower of London. Harrison looked directly at Camilla. Your Majesty, I need you to explain how this came to be in your possession. Camilla's response came after a deliberate pause, her words chosen carefully. It was intended for tonight's state dinner, a symbol of continuity between reigns, a connection that would resonate with the public. People deserve to see their royal heritage in active use, not locked away like a museum exhibit that no one can appreciate. The public also deserves to know that their most sacred royal artifacts haven't been relocated without proper constitutional authority, Inspector Robbins said. Stevens continued his technical examination, documenting every detail. Ma'am, according to Royal Collection records, St. Edward's crown has been removed from the Tower of London exactly 0 times since Queen Elizabeth II's coronation in 1953. It's never authorized for private custody under any circumstances. Camilla's legal counsel, who had arrived during the safe inspection, stepped forward. Commander, surely the Queen Consort has reasonable discretion regarding ceremonial items for official state functions? Not regarding the crown jewels, Harrison replied without hesitation. Those belong to the British people, held in trust by the institution of the crown. They're not personal accessories available for individual use. Even by members of the royal family, the dressing room fell into tense silence except for the soft humming of the safe's climate control system. St. Edward's crown sat between them like evidence in a constitutional courtroom. Beautiful, historically irreplaceable, and completely unauthorized. Harrison activated a secure radio. Control, this is Commander Harrison. Confirm immediate retrieval of crown jewel RC001 from unauthorized location. Requesting armored transport to Tower of London for return to proper constitutional custody. As he waited for response confirmation, he addressed Camilla again. Your Majesty, this discovery will require a comprehensive review of how this artifact was removed from the tower. Who provided authorization for the transfer? and whether any additional crown jewels are currently in unauthorized locations. For the first time since the investigation began, Camilla's carefully maintained composure showed signs of cracking. It wasn't meant to become this kind of incident. The crown was supposed to be seen, appreciated, used for its intended ceremonial purpose, not hidden away in vaults where people forget it exists. Its intended purpose, Harrison said gently but firmly, includes remaining under constitutional protection as a symbol that belongs to everyone, not to any individual. That's precisely what makes it sacred to the British people. Camilla turned away, pacing slowly around the dressing room's perimeter. I was advised that it would create a powerful statement. Tradition, continuity, the sense that this institution endures despite contemporary challenges. The public responds to visible connections to historical legitimacy. Visible connections work best when they're constitutionally authorized. Inspector Robbins pointed out, unauthorized use creates exactly the opposite impression. That royal artifacts are personal property rather than national treasures held in trust. 25 minutes later, the Crown Jewel transport unit arrived, an armored vehicle specifically designed for moving Britain's most precious royal artifacts, complete with temperature controls, shock absorption, armed escort, and direct communication links to both Buckingham Palace and the Tower of London. Stevens carefully lifted St. Edward's crown from its unauthorized resting place, handling it with the reverence usually reserved for religious artifacts. The crown was heavier than most people realized, not just because of the gold and precious stones, but because it carried the symbolic weight of centuries of British constitutional history. As he secured it in the official transportation case with custom-fitted padding and biometric locks, Stevens couldn't help marveling at the craftsmanship. Every detail had been designed to convey divine authority and constitutional legitimacy, from the positioning of the cross patty above the arches to the specific arrangement of gems that told the story of British sovereignty. Harrison completed the official transfer paperwork while the transport team verified their security protocols. This concludes our immediate investigation, with Crown Jeweler C001 returning to proper constitutional custody at the Tower of London. No criminal charges will be filed, but this incident will be reviewed by the royal household to prevent similar constitutional irregularities. Camilla watched from her dressing room doorway as the transport team carried away the crown she'd planned to wear for that evening's state dinner. You realize you've just prevented something genuinely meaningful from happening. The British public would have been moved to see that crown worn again, to witness living history rather than museum preservation. History stays alive through respect and constitutional protection, Your Majesty, Harrison replied. Not through unauthorized personal use, no matter how well-intentioned. As the armored transport disappeared through the palace gates, carrying St. Edward's crown back to its proper home in the Tower of London's Jewel House, Commander Harrison completed his incident report. The final summary captured the entire investigation in a single line. Crown Jeweler C001 recovered from unauthorized custody. Constitutional integrity maintained. The investigation had lasted less than 3 hours, but its implications would influence royal protocol discussions for years to come. Some artifacts transcend individual ownership. They belong to entire nations, to shared histories, to constitutional principles that matter more than any single person's desire to wear them for cameras. The British crown jewels represent more than expensive jewelry. They embody centuries of constitutional evolution, democratic principles, and the idea that even monarchs serve something larger than themselves. When those symbols are protected, democracy itself is strengthened. Should members of the royal family have access to the actual crown jewels from modern public appearances? Was Commander Harrison right to force open that safe, knowing it would create constitutional embarrassment for the Queen Consort? And if you discovered evidence suggesting unauthorized possession of your nation's most sacred artifacts, would you have made that crucial call to authorities? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We genuinely read every response and often feature the most insightful observations in future videos. If you believe some treasures belong to entire nations and should never be treated as personal accessories, hit that like button right now to show your support for constitutional protection over individual preference. Make sure you're subscribed with notifications turned on so you never miss stories that reveal what really happens when protocol meets personal ambition behind the most carefully guarded doors in Britain. These investigations happen more often than the public realizes, but they're usually resolved before anyone outside palace security even knows they occurred. Share this story with anyone who understands that protecting democratic institutions sometimes means saying no to the most powerful people in society. And click on the next video to discover another incident where royal protocol enforcement prevented a potential constitutional crisis that could have changed British history forever. We'll see you tomorrow with more stories proving that the most important victories are often won quietly by people who understand that some principles matter more than individual desires, no matter how royal those desires might be.